This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 54. I'm Harold Ree.
And I'm Nancy Ree. Today's guest is Ric Browde.
That's the whole cool thing about Wings of Rescue, is that we're not afraid to try something. We kept getting told no, that you can't save this many pets at one time. Proof's in the pudding. Yes, you can.
Ric is coordinator for Wings of Rescue, an organization founded by Yehuda Netanel and Cindy Smith that has flown 20,000 pets from high-kill areas to places that will take them, mainly to the Pacific Northwest and mountain states of the U.S.
Before Wings of Rescue, Ric Browde had already accomplished a lot. He's a graduate of Cornell University and has worked for many years in rock and roll, working with everyone from Ted Nugent, Joan Jett, Poison, Faster Pussycat. He's also written a book, While I'm Dead, Feed the Dog, which is a hilarious and very autobiographical book about Ric growing up.
If you want to learn more about Ric and Wings of Rescue, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/54. That's the number 54.
Right now, I'm the coordinator for Wings of Rescue. We fly shelter pets that are in danger in high-capacity shelters, primarily in California, but we're also doing Oklahoma, and we're going to be going into Nevada as well, to no-kill shelters. I don't like that term because it's a little bit disingenuous, but primarily in the Pacific Northwest, but also in the East Coast as well.
How long has Wings of Rescue been around, and what was the inspiration to start flying these animals?
Well, Wings of Rescue started about 6 years ago when our co-founder, Yehuda Netanel, was flying for Pilots and Paws, which is another and a worthwhile organization. But he realized the inefficiencies in Pilots and Paws' method of doing things, and that we could save a lot more pets and with a lot more direct results. So he came up with the concept of Wings of Rescue. He then took it to one of the Pilots and Paws board members, Cindy Smith, and they argued about it because she didn't think it would work at first. And then Yehuda, like everything Yehuda does, is he proves that he's right. He showed her how it was done, and then Wings of Rescue was born.
So what is it about Wings of Rescue that's either more efficient, more effective, in your opinion?
What our model is that we take planes, and most of our planes are owned by independent pilots who are volunteers, and we use the full capacity of the airplane and fill it with pets, and then fly from a high capacity shelter that's going to unfortunately have to result in euthanasia. And then we take the entire plane load to a shelter in, for instance, in Seattle area, and take the whole, it might be like 85 dogs, if they're small, to the shelter on the receiving end. It's just one transaction, basically, a direct flight. As opposed to previously, Pilots and Paws would have a 500-mile limit, and it'd be like one or two pets at a time. We're taking plane loads of pets. We try and remove everything, basically, except for the pilot and co-pilot seat. The more pets we can carry, the more pets we can save, and that's what we're all about.
So over the past 6 years, can you estimate number of flights, number of dogs and cats and other animals saved?
I know last year we did about 7,000 pets.
Oh my gosh.
This year we're on a pace to do close to 12,000.
12,000. That number is almost unfathomable. On average, how many dogs and cats can you squeeze in there?
Well, we bought last year, we bought a Pilatus PC-12, which can fit, depending, it is all depending on what size dogs you're taking, but the most we ever put on it was 110 pets. So, and that's our primary workhorse. We own the plane. We fly that plane about 2 or 3 times a week. Then there are other planes that we use as well, depending on pilot availability, but the PC-12 is available to us sort of around the clock.
So do you, Cindy, or Yehuda, do any of you have a pilot's license?
Yehuda and Cindy are pilots. I'm the one in the organization who isn't.
Okay.
I'm the dog wrangler, so to speak, and the logistics coordinator, but I fly as sometimes sit in the co-pilot seat, and they're all teaching me to fly. We have, I think, approximately 25 pilots who fly for us.
Anybody who's even remotely involved in animal rescue knows that takes a full team effort. Outside of you, Cindy, and Yehuda, and of course these volunteer pilots, who else is really kind of helping get these animals saved?
We rely on the shelters who want to save their pets, which, there's some shelters that are far more cooperative. We have a tremendous lady down in Oklahoma who came to us she's kind of an incredible story. She didn't know anything about dog rescue, but she saw they were gassing dogs in gas chambers, or taking them outside and shooting them, or using heart sticks to euthanize dogs in Oklahoma, and this horrified her. She had just moved in there, sort of a migrant from Oregon, and she decided that she wanted to help in a meaningful way, and she put together an organization in Oklahoma. We've sent 3 plane loads of actually planes that we hired because they were so big, all these big dogs, and we've saved about 140 dogs in Oklahoma in the last month. It takes a village to save one dog, and so with the number of dogs we're taking, it takes a huge city, maybe even a country.
Can you maybe talk about what parts of the country tend to have a greater overpopulation, and where do you tend to fly these animals to?
The problem is the United States, the entire United States pretty much is not very pet friendly. California is one of the worst states, but all throughout the South, the Southwest, Southeast, South Central, you have a huge overpopulation. It may have something to do with the weather. The warmer the weather is, the pets are out. You have irresponsible pet owners who are not spay-neutering their pets. And so you have all these pets who, in California, in Southern California, the temperatures are so warm 12 months of the year, they can be out on the streets procreating. And unfortunately that happens. In the Pacific Northwest, primarily, weather may be a little bit colder. There also tend to be probably some economic reasons as well. You also have people, probably a greater degree of private home ownership, and that allows you to have more pets. It's kind of amazing for us that there's a shelter. One of our biggest shelters is a shelter in Spokane called Spokanimal. And they called up and said, we're going to have to furlough some workers because we don't have any pets in the shelter. And they take about 50 dogs every week from us. They're amazing.
50 dogs every week. That's unbelievable. Do they truly have that much demand? I mean, can they take even more?
We have 3 shelters in the Spokane region. We have Spokane Humane, Spokanimal, and Kootenai Humane Society in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So within 25 miles, we have these 3 shelters, and they just seem to be like a bottomless pit. I keep joking with them, and it's a black hole in the back of their shelters, because it's amazing. Until you go up there, you just can't believe it, especially when you come from the perpetual crisis mode that you would be in if you were in Southern California, and then you go up there, and I'm up there every couple weeks on a Wings of Rescue flight. You see people just waiting for us at the airport to adopt these pets. I mean, literally, there are crowds oohing and ahhing as they come off the plane and just sort of staking their claim, trying to get these pets. And one of the shelters actually happens to be on the grounds of the airport, and sometimes they walk the pets over to the shelter. Quite a few of the pets don't make it there because they're adopted en route. You see the people slowing down, getting on their cell phone, calling their family to come meet the pet, and by the time the pet gets to the shelter, it doesn't even get booked in. It just goes right straight to the adoption counter.
Down where you are, Southern California, can you highlight any sort of organizations that you feel really do a good job of putting the animals' health as a priority?
There are some shelters that are cooperative, if you're talking about the sheltering aspect.
Sure.
So the rescues are all, I shouldn't say all, but most of them are pretty, behind it. Some shelters want to cooperate, will do whatever necessary to get their pets out. Other shelters do a terrible job of it for whatever political or sometimes just old school thinking. Mm-hmm. The most progressive shelters Our Bakersfield is just an amazingly well-run shelter. Tulare is an amazingly well-run shelter. Tulare City. Those are two that kind of stand out. Barstow, Maine will do anything to get one of their pets out. The Downey shelter in Los Angeles County has been very cooperative. There are some shelters that do really good work. There are others, unfortunately, that don't.
You actually do a good job of documenting that on your own website. Talking to Ric Browde of Wings and Rescue, wingsofrescue.org, or you can look up Ric Browde at ricbrowde.com. We'll include his website in our show notes. Ric, what does a typical day look like for you? I mean, it sounds like you are truly, even after our interview today, you're going to be going off, as you said, wrangling some dogs.
Before, when I first started with Wings and Rescue, which was in 2014, I was going to the shelters every day throughout Southern California because it was kind of, we were growing and we were just sort of setting up our infrastructure because we really metamorphosed about 2 years ago into what we are now. But now I spend so much of my time coordinating with the various sending shelters and receiving shelters that I spend a lot of my time just from 7 o'clock in the morning till about 11 o'clock at night on the phone with these various shelters and making sure that the dogs are being health sitted, and I might only get to 1 or 2 shelters a day.
That can take up the whole day, right?
The driving can get to you, and I'm trying to learn how to delegate in my old age.
Yeah, Southern California traffic, not the friendliest, right?
It's not conducive to quick turnarounds.
Yeah. What's your original inspiration yourself in getting involved in animal rescue?
I sort of happened upon it through my wife. She was volunteering at the East Valley Shelter in Los Angeles City and doing mobile adoptions with them. And she sort of taught me very quickly, because I was ignorant like most people are. I could never believe that we were living in a community that was euthanizing so many pets that were totally adoptable. And so I think, I've been married to my wife for 37 years now. And when we think of our happiest moments, they all involve pets. And I was luckily financially secure enough that I was like going, well, maybe I can make a difference. So I started volunteering first in Los Angeles City. It started taking over my life, even though I had a company that I ran in Italy, and I was also involved in the music business and as an author. It just started taking over my life. And then I was invited to go to the Baldwin Park shelter, which was a Los Angeles County shelter and a very, very high intake shelter. And it was a shelter that had been previously euthanizing 100 dogs every day. And the manager of the shelter at the time invited me in he had heard about some of the things that I was doing, and with my then partner, we decided we would photograph. And then I had gotten a camera from Angie's List, of all things. They'd given me one of those Cisco flip cameras for free for some reason or another. And so I said, well, maybe what we should do is do videos of these dogs as well. So we started bringing in professional photographers and doing videos and creating what was called the networking list. We were one of the first shelters to utilize social media and Facebook. I started running this thing, and all of a sudden we had 70,000 followers on Facebook. Our adoption rate for our networking list was at about 99%.
No kidding. What year was this?
This was 2009, I think, was when I first went there. Yeah, and it started developing, and we started bringing volunteers, and we started getting famous for what we were doing. Then, unfortunately, it brought a lot of resistance from the people who ran Los Angeles County, not from the shelter itself, but the people who ran animal control, because I started realizing the inefficiencies in their way of doing things, gross neglect that was happening at the top, and I took on the administration. They fired me, even though we changed the adoption rate. The live release rate had just skyrocketed, but they were very worried about the imaging that we were using, which was really weird, because the whole imaging that we were using was that instead of marketing pets as, instead of using the concept of this dog dies at midnight if you don't come and get it, we decided to market the dogs as, you really want this dog. But they didn't like the fact that I described the city, Baldwin Park, where the shelter was located, as quote unquote, I used, it's an economically and educationally challenged area, which was really weird because that's exactly what the politicians who run and what HUD statistics showed. They resented this. It may have been from some political interference from the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles who probably didn't like their communities being insulted.
So how did you transition from local shelters in Southern California to getting connected with Wings of Rescue?
In January of 2014, Yehuda Netanel, founder of Wings of Rescue, came to the Baldwin Park shelter. I'd already been fired, but I was still sort of lurking around and running the Facebook page and running the networking thing. And he wanted to do what then was going to be the biggest transport of all time. And he wanted to do 105 dogs to two shelters in Idaho, the Kootenai Humane Society and Panhandle Humane Society, both shelters that we still fly to this day. And Kootenai is probably one of our absolute favorites. And it was going to involve 8 small planes. But it's very expensive to fly these planes. You know, petrol costs money to send these pilots up, and sometimes we have to rent planes and things like that. So it was an expensive proposition, and we needed to raise $8,000 for this flight to happen. And I was like, I had been sending dogs on transports myself, but using scheduled airlines, and I knew how expensive it was. We would send like 40 dogs to Connecticut, and it would cost us about $6,000.
Oh, sure.
And they needed $5,000 to make this happen. And Yehuda had a meeting with Lance Hunter, who was then running the Baldwin Park shelter, and a gentleman by the name of Stephen Latham, who runs Shelter Me, and it was going to be filmed for Shelter Me, but money was the problem. And they came to me and said, how just sort of asking. I said, well, I can raise the money off the Facebook page in a day, and we did. I just said, hey, we've got the opportunity to save 100 dogs from Baldwin Park. And so we did this thing. Somehow, Yehuda, being the genius that he is, pulled it off. And we ended up saving 105 that day. One of the pilots felt so guilty that there was a couple of dogs that we couldn't fit on the plane because our crates were too big, that he came back the next day and flew another 15.
No kidding.
So 120 actually were saved. We actually adopted, because we left a few on the ground, I had actually adopted 4 of them on the ground to various rescues. So we could say we actually saved 124. But that brought me in with Wings of Rescue, and Yehuda and I enjoyed working with each other. And Yehuda said, well, maybe you could bring something to it. And it was sort of an informal relationship, because I was with my own rescue that I had, and it just evolved. And all of a sudden, Yehuda can never be content with doing the same thing twice, always wants to be bigger and better. And all of a sudden he said, well, we could get this Metroliner plane, and it can hold 150 dogs. And we could have done this in one plane load. And sure enough, all of a sudden he's doing that. And then he goes, well, it's cheaper if you fly a Metroliner 2 days in a row, because it would cost $15,000 to rent this plane for one day. But it would cost like $22,000 to fly it 2 days. So, it would be like saving $4,000. Let's find 2 destinations to do it too. All of a sudden, we're doing 300 dogs at a time. Then all of a sudden, he comes up with this idea. We're doing a holiday airlift. The first year was like 600 dogs. And then the next year, this past November, we did 1,100 dogs and 60 cats. I think it was 1,075 dogs and 65 cats. And he just he's like P.T. Barnum. He's a fabulous guy. And he just, he wants to be bigger and better and challenging, to work harder. And so we've just grown and grown and grown. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of 22-hour days. We get it done.
What would be the big lesson you would share with the greater audience?
I think the one thing that I would do is say that all rescue is local. You just need to organize and take the drama out. I think that's why the success of Wings of Rescue has been trying to eliminate the drama. There's so much within animal rescue, there's so much inner sniping at each other. And a lot of people try and prove. I think a lot of people are in animal rescue because they have a different agenda, and they're trying to prove that they have a higher capacity of love than anybody else, and it becomes competitive to them. And it shouldn't be competitive at any point, and it should be all collaborative. The hardest thing that I think that for anybody doing what we do at Wings of Rescue is realizing that you can't save them all, and it's what drives us to get up in the morning and try and figure a way of trying to save them. Because, you see some organizations down here that are using the catchphrase "save them all" and making it sound like they're no kill, and that they're, selling NKLA t-shirts and things like that. But it's just a marketing scheme. But the reality is that we're not saving them all, and you always try and be better. And you're always trying to save more, but it's sort of a Sisyphean task that you can't save them all, and it bothers you, so you just try and do better.
Can we rewind the clock a little bit before you got into dog rescue? You've done other things. Maybe tell us a little bit about, childhood, education, your whole kind of journey up to this point.
Well, I grew up sort of around the world. I went to Cornell University. From Cornell University, I got involved in, and I had a degree in history and government. Somehow ended up in rock and roll, working with Ted Nugent, producing albums for him. And somehow that led to other things than rock and roll, and I was produced bands like Poison and Joan Jett, and co-wrote some things with the Scorpions drummer, and I had some hits with Faster Pussycat, and worked with some eclectic bands in the 80s primarily and 90s, and still do some albums in Italy. And then I wrote a book that was made into a movie, and that's pretty much it.
With all your experience, life experience, rescue experience, what's the best life advice you've ever received?
I think the best life advice is to not follow any rules and just think for yourself and just go ahead and do it. What's the word? I think when I was in my first rock and roll band, we were playing a gig in front of 3,000 people, and to me that was terrifying. A friend of mine who was in a rival band, so to speak, said, what's the worst possible thing that could possibly happen to you in front of a band? It's like, what is the absolute worst possible thing that could happen to you? And I was like 17 years old. I remember going, well, then I'd have to pee on stage, and that would be just terrible. Like, what would I do? He said, well, why don't you pee in your pants? And then you realize, if that's the worst thing in life, you're going to be just fine. Just go do it. Don't be scared. And that piece of advice actually sort of guided me through life. It's just like, don't take no for an answer. If you want to try something, do it. I've tried various careers, and I never wanted to do one thing the rest of my life. The dog rescue has seemingly taken over the last 10 years. But that's the whole cool thing about Wings of Rescue, which to me is near and dear, is that we're not afraid to try something. We kept getting told no, that you can't save this many pets at one time. Well, proof's in the pudding. Yes, you can. The whole thing is, there is a tremendous need out here. This country euthanizes 4 million pets each year. That's obscene, that we're killing these pets when there are homes. Probably, I don't think there are 4 million homes out there right now for these pets, but there are probably 250,000 homes for sure. So let's say those 250,000 homes, pets, And then let's try and figure out why we're having to kill these. Why do we have an overpopulation? And maybe enact some spay-neuter ordinances. I think one of my favorite things that I've done in the last year is gotten a spay-neuter ordinance enacted in a small community in Southern California that was contributing 21% of the pets to the shelter that I was volunteering at. Mm-hmm. And it was like, we all get victimized by, well, let somebody else do it, or it's going to be too hard, or it's going to be too difficult. It is difficult, but you need to invest. You need to put some skin in the game and actually do something. And, everybody whines. It always bothers me when I see on Facebook, and I stay off the personal side of Facebook tremendously, but, on the shelter pages, we'll put up something about this dog, and you'll see all these people who put hopes and prayers and wishing the best and this, that, and the other thing. And you know that all they're doing is trying to act. It kind of bugs me that they actually even do this or share it and things like that. I know they're trying to help, but it's like, what are you really doing is you're just saying, I care too, but you're not doing anything. And that's what really bugs me. Like, why don't you help and do something yourself? Why don't you go to the shelter? Why don't you volunteer? Why don't you spend 2 or 3 hours trying to get some pet adopted? If we all pitch in, we can solve the problem. But if we all sit at home and write little Facebook comments and emoticons and things like that, you don't do anything. And that's what bugs me. Mm-hmm. And that's what I love about Wings of Rescue is that we're all in there doing something. I must put 80 to 100 hours every week of my life into Wings of Rescue. And all of us at Wings of Rescue do that. We want to save pets, and we're doing it. And there's what's gratifying is there are a lot of people that are joining us and helping us, either financially or, investing a few hours cleaning crates or coming and loading the airplane with us and, bringing blankets and all these things that in and of themselves may seem to be small, but are really large in the grand scheme of things. And so that's the gratifying part. But it's just, you don't want to sound like a evangelist in terms of like, don't you understand? I'm right and you're wrong. It's not that. But we've got a problem. You need to recognize it. And we need to work on the legislative. Wings of Rescue is a Band-Aid, and it's a very effective Band-Aid, and it's a great Band-Aid, and it needs to be supported. But we need to cut off the supply. We need to stop breeding, and that requires legislation and education. And until we get that education and legislation in place, we're condemned to needing Wings of Rescue. I want to be the Maytag. We all want to be the Maytag repairman. We'd love to not be needed, but don't see any signs of that in the near future.
We're talking to Ric Browde of Wings of Rescue. Ric, what is the best way to find your organization, whether it's online or in social media?
Well, we have wingsofrescue.org is our website, and we invite everybody to visit it and donate. We also have a Facebook page, and it's very active, Wings of Rescue. And you'll see the flights that we're doing, and as they come. The most important thing is the message that I'd like to get out is it costs us about $8,000, between $7,000 and $8,000, to fly 100 dogs to safety. We're entirely donor-based. We need every dollar. There's no donation that's too small or too large. But if you really want to save pets' lives, we have very little in the way of financial overhead. If you look at our income tax forms that are on Charity Navigator, you'll see that when you give us $1, we probably spend $1.50 and on saving a pet. It's not like some of these large national fundraising organizations that you give them $1 and 50 cents gets siphoned off at the top. So all rescue is local. You just need to decide where your money wants to go. But if you really want to join us in saving pets, please donate either your time or, if you can fall off your wallet, it would be really lovely.
Well, we just want to say thank you to Ric Browde. Ric, before we let you go, any last words or thoughts?
No matter where you're listening to this, there's probably a shelter within 20 miles of you. with pets in need. And I invite you to go to your local shelter, volunteer. If the shelter won't allow volunteers, ask them why. But secondly, see if you can help a pet. If you see a feral cat, see if you can get it neutered or altered. It's all local. If we all pitched in, we could end this problem. It's just the fact is everybody thinks that somebody else is going to do it for them, and they don't. If we mobilize one person out of this podcast to volunteer at their shelter or to donate to Wings of Rescue or anything, then it's a success. But really spread awareness and spay and neuter your own pet and adopt a pet from the shelter. Don't go to a puppy mill. There are amazing pets in need at every shelter in the United States.
We want to say thank you to Ric Browde for sharing his story. And we want to congratulate Wings of Rescue on rescuing 20,000 pets. We look forward to thousands more success stories. If you want to learn more about Ric and Wings of Rescue and see some amazing photos, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/54. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on Paw Print, you can email us at thisispawprint@gmail.com or go to our contact page at thisispawprint.com/contact. Don't forget to sign up for our free bonus dog training materials from our favorite positive reinforcement dog trainer, Irit Bloom. Simply go to thisispawprint.com/ask to sign up. If you'd like to meet me or Nancy on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Our profile name is @thisispawprint, all one word. If you want to listen to more episodes of Paw Print, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, and YouTube. Make sure to hit subscribe or follow to get the latest episodes immediately. We want to say thank you to all of you for sharing Paw Print with your friends and family. Remember that you spread a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time with another great guest on Paw Print.
Is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.